What is up, my archfiends of chaos? Come back to the brand new video. It's none other than King of the Night 57. Play my shit.
What's up, my archbeats of chaos? This is your King and I've been EX Turk. Let's talk about what a power trip fantasy is, or power fantasy. As for certain, power fantasy is pretty much being super delusional. It could be about something, whether it's your looks, where you underestimate your looks, your skill at a sport, your skill at musical talent. It don't matter. What have you? Card game, e-sport, how much you lift, whatever have you. And the power fantasy pretty much in your mind means, in your mind you live in a different reality than everybody else. And it's not always good. Pretty much these people think what they perceive as normal in their mind and soul, that everyone perceives as normal. Such as if you see, no offense to people who are like, furries or anything like that, furries, bronies, everything. It doesn't matter how, but, it could just be with anything. It don't even have to be anything with the extremes, but these, people with the power fantasy, not only they get delusional and thinking that they're good at something when they're clearly not, and everybody can tell them that, to the point where they coexist in their own reality or their own bubble. It's kind of like with social bubbles. What is perceived to be normal behaviors to some may not be normal behaviors to all. Without all that, but it can also be the fact that they normalize something that's kind of what you call moronic, or something that just, normalize something that's just not really exactly normal, if I could say that. If people visit a DeviantArt page, then they probably know what I'm talking about, where they normalize what they're into to the point. Now, to each their own, but even then, it's like there's gotta be at least some part of you where you could actually coexist with everybody in the real world, instead of living a fantasy bubble where only your boundaries matter and nobody else's does. If you make people feel uncomfortable, most people that you make feel uncomfortable probably ain't gonna want to have anything to do with you. That's why I think you really need to actually kind of think about not only what you say and do, but understand that what may be okay to you personally may not be okay to other people, and you got to be more considerate. Like I said, there's two kinds of power fantasy. The one where you have Kruger-Dunning syndrome, where you underestimate your skill, kind of like Conor McGregor and MGK, pretty much, where you're in this whole I'm gonna win phase, I'm the best, no one's better than me type of phase, and then you get beat. Which is not really too bad, because most normal people have that. Most normal people think that they're the best. Most normal people think that they're the greatest in the world, and that no one can actually outdo them, It's actually quite normal, because you get that power fantasy, you get that mindset. And part of being a confident person is having small bits of it. But when it gets to the point where you're completely arrogant and can't listen to, criticisms about it, then it becomes a problem. Then the power fantasy becomes so much of a problem, because you start to live in a fantasy world where you're good and no one else can tell you you're different. Even when you clearly lose, you try to make excuses why you lose and make excuses why you did bad, because You know, it's just which is, again, that's more normal, but you gotta be able to be open to take criticisms when needed. You gotta be able to understand that maybe you're not as skilled or as good at this or that as you think you are. You know, doesn't mean disrespect yourself. It does not mean be negative. It doesn't mean, you know, call yourself trash. It just means understand that you may underestimate your abilities a little bit, and that you kind of pushed yourself over on others, you know, when others don't believe the same thing you do, which, again, there's reality and then there's your altered perception of reality. Altered perception, you know, and then there's the other one, the other power fantasy, where they think everything they do is completely normal. Like, not all furries, not all, not all people in the group, but like how some weeaboos, furries, and bronies think everything they do is completely natural and normal because they believe it's normal, but have not actually went outside their doors and talked to real people. And which I think for that cure for that is start talking to regular people out in the world, you know, instead of just staying in your online lobbies, and maybe you'll realize that maybe half the behavior doesn't mean you have to stop being into what you're into. Just, you know, cut back on the uncomfortable behavior, because, you know, your altered perception of reality is possibly the reason why it's hard for you to make friends and socialize with people, because, you know, most people don't think it's normal for certain activities. Granted, you know, it doesn't mean you gotta stop being who you really are. If you feel like this is your identity, just do it in a way where you don't make people feel uncomfortable. You know, you gotta realize that other people's boundaries matter just as much as yours. And that's why I said you can't live in a power fantasy reality or altered reality, or I call it augmented reality. Pretty much, you can't live your whole life thinking what you do is normal. There's, you know, when it's like completely weird and uncomfortable. Same thing as conversation stuff and stuff like that. You know, like most people, at least awkward people who interact with girls, will go around there telling girls there that they've, you know, squeezed their hog to their pictures and stuff like that. Reality is, well, every girl don't want to hear that. That makes them feel uncomfortable. That makes them feel uneasy. So maybe it's possible to not tell them that stuff, but people with this perception that their conversations like that are normal also have a different kind of power fantasy than the egotistic egomaniac who thinks that they're good at everything. You know, this is where it's important to socialize with the rest of the world, because then you're forced to actually be in the same reality as everybody else and understand that maybe this thing is not normal, this thing is not natural, and might need to change it. Granted, be whoever you are, but understand when certain behaviors are kind of frowned upon, it's kind of frowned upon for certain reasons. Because most of the majority of the world had the connection and knowledge that everybody else has. It's kind of like this whole thing with common sense and common knowledge stuff. You know, even though common sense is no longer common, common knowledge is still common knowledge. Everybody knows something about something. You know, whether you're bad at something and you claim to be good when you're not, or whether you're just the socially awkward type to actually think that your behavior in your conversation taste is completely normal. And that's just where you need to realize that Or this is where you need to realize, maybe, I don't know, maybe this isn't completely normal. Maybe I need to wake up and be able to fit in with reality, but also still be myself doing so, but in a way where, be myself in a way where I could be acceptable and not too cringy, you know, and realize maybe that this other person don't exactly think the same as I do. Look, nobody's gonna always think the same you do. No one's gonna always believe the same things you believe. You may believe one thing, other people believe another. That's just how reality works. And living in an augmented reality could cue your perception of reality and think, gee, well, see, because I feel this, everybody else should feel this. And that's where people get things wrong, you know. It's not like accepting your sexuality, religion, or personality trait. It's more of the fact that you gotta be able to wake up and live in the same world as everybody else. Just because in your heart, in your mind, you think you're good at something, that you mastered something, just take at least little pointers to get better. It does not mean stop or give up. It just means maybe don't go claiming you're as good as you think you are, because then you're going to end up getting clowned. As well as don't go around thinking that what you find completely normal and natural to you, everybody else should be feeling the same thing, because everybody's got their own boundaries and comfort levels, and you got to be respectful to everybody's comfort levels and understand that, if they're uncomfortable with something, you're uncomfortable with something. It's not normal to them. Maybe normal to you, and you do you. Just remember boundaries and be respectful. That way people don't call you a weirdo or clown you or anything like that. Be yourself, but be the kind of self that realizes that I gotta coexist with everybody else. So I gotta, be able to be more approachable instead of closing myself off to this false sense of reality, this power fantasy. Take suggestions from people when people give you criticisms on your craft. And for awkwardness, just realize that maybe people don't feel the same way you do about something, and understand that that's how they feel. That's how they feel. And understand that when you bring up the situation. Now I'll agree. I'll be honest. Like for me, I do tease trailer by saying Justice League is the best movie. Just the tease, like a friendly tease. But there's the other kind of people that go around here forcing their opinion, saying that is a good movie when it's kind of not. But you get the point. What I'm trying to say is that what may be alright for you may not be alright for others. And you gotta understand that's exactly their comfort zone. You gotta get out of your augmented reality, your power fantasy, and start coexisting with everybody else. It's good to be confident. Be confident, but don't be too arrogant. Don't be the kind of arrogant where you feel like your feelings matter over everybody else's. And may the crystal be with you, and that's pretty much what a power fantasy is.